The grand ballroom of the New York Tech Conference was a spectacle of innovation and ambition, a place where dreams collided with reality. Mark Sullivan stood confidently on the stage, the spotlights illuminating his chiseled features and the tailored suit that spoke of his success. A projector behind him displayed the soaring numbers and charts that had become synonymous with his company, Sullivan Technologies. Yet as he spoke, his charismatic voice resonating through the room, a gnawing emptiness lingered within him, tugging at the edges of his consciousness. Success isn't just about profits or shares, Mark declared, his voice strong yet laced with an undercurrent of something deeper. It's about impact. It's about changing lives, yours and others. The audience erupted in applause, their admiration palpable. But Mark's thoughts drifted. He had built an empire from the ground up, yet the accolades felt hollow. The smiles of his investors and the praises of his peers faded as he recalled his childhood, the moments he felt truly alive, long before the weight of expectations and the relentless pursuit of success consumed him. As he stepped off the stage, he was greeted by a group of executives, all vying for his attention. They praised his speech, a well-rehearsed routine that had grown tiresome. Yet as he nodded along, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was just playing a part in a life crafted by others. Expectations. "Mark, we need to talk about the upcoming expansion," one of them pressed, the urgency in his tone cutting through Mark's introspection. "Later," Mark replied, his mind elsewhere. He glanced out a floor-to-ceiling window overlooking the bustling streets of Manhattan. The city was alive, a chaotic symphony of honking cars, flashing lights, and the distant murmur of conversations. Somewhere out there, amidst the throng, was a reality he had long forgotten, a world unfettered by the chains of wealth and power. Meanwhile, just a few blocks away, Emily Carter set up her modest street stall, a colorful array of handmade jewelry glinting under the afternoon sun. Unlike the polished presentations of the tech world, her world was raw and authentic. Yet today was one of those days when the streets felt particularly uninviting. A few passers-by glanced at her wares, but most hurried by, engrossed in their own lives. "Come on, just a little attention," she murmured to herself, adjusting the delicate silver chains and colorful beads that adorned her display. Each piece she crafted was infused with her dreams, her aspirations to become a well-known jewelry designer. But as she looked at the empty street, a sense of despair washed over her. The debts piled up, and the pressure to succeed was suffocating. She had hoped for more. She had envisioned her designs gracing the necks of celebrities. But for now, her only audience was the occasional disinterested tourist. "Hey, can I get a discount on this one?" A voice interrupted her thoughts. It was a young man, his casual demeanor contrasting with the sharpness of the city's hustle. Emily forced a smile, shaking her head. "I'm afraid not. Each piece is handmade, and I put a lot of effort into them." "Yeah, but it's just a necklace." He shrugged, his eyes drifting to the next stall. Emily felt a pang in her chest. To her, each necklace was a story, a fragment of her soul woven into the fabric of her dreams. "It may be just a necklace to some, but to me, it represents hope," she replied, her voice softer now, revealing a vulnerability that she rarely allowed others to see. The young man raised an eyebrow, taken aback by her passion. "Hope, huh? That's a big word for a piece of jewelry." He chuckled lightly but then moved on, leaving Emily feeling more isolated than ever. She sighed, her heart heavy with disappointment, and glanced at her reflection in a nearby shop window. The woman staring back at her looked weary, the sparkle in her eyes dimmed by the burden of unfulfilled dreams. As the sun began to set, casting a golden hue over the city, Mark Sullivan stepped out of the conference center, his mind still tangled in the web of corporate strategy and future projects. He walked briskly, his polished shoes clicking against the pavement as he reviewed his notes mentally. But as he navigated through the crowded streets, he felt an unexpected flutter of something, curiosity perhaps, pulling him away from his usual path. He meandered through the throngs of people, lost in thought about how to further his company's reach, when something caught his eye. A glimmering object near a street stall drew his attention. It was a necklace, its intricate design shimmering under the fading light. He slowed his pace, captivated by the way it seemed to dance in the air, as if calling out to him. As he approached, he noticed the woman behind the stall. She was focused on arranging her jewelry, her brow furrowed in concentration. But it wasn't just the necklace that struck Mark, it was the design itself. So familiar, yet so distant. It was a design that echoed in the corridors of his memory, one he associated with warmth and love. He felt a jolt, a sudden connection to a past he had tried to bury. "Excuse me?" he called out, his voice breaking the stillness. Emily looked up, her eyes widening in surprise. "That necklace? Where did you get the idea for it?" His tone was a mix of curiosity and something deeper, something that made Emily's heart race. "I made it," she replied, her cheeks flushing at the unexpected attention. "It's inspired by my own designs, something I've been working on for years." She felt a flicker of hope ignite within her. Perhaps this man, with his sharp suit and confident demeanor, could be a potential customer. "It's one of my favorites, actually." Mark stepped closer, the noise of the street fading into the background. "It's beautiful," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "It reminds me of something from my past." His gaze was intense, and Emily could sense the weight of the memories behind his words. "What do you mean?" she asked, intrigued. This stranger, so polished, seemed to carry a depth that belied his appearance. She could see the flicker of something in his eyes, a vulnerability that mirrored her own struggles. "It's a long story," he replied, glancing around as if the bustling city could somehow intrude on their moment. "But that design, it reminds me of my mother. She used to wear something similar." His voice cracked slightly, revealing the rawness hidden beneath his confident exterior. Emily's heart sank for a moment. She had inadvertently tapped into a well of emotions within this man, and a sense of empathy washed over her. "I'm sorry, it must bring back some memories," she said softly, her own dreams and struggles momentarily forgotten as she connected with his pain. Mark nodded, his eyes lingering on the necklace, and for a fleeting moment, he felt a sense of grounding that had eluded him in the high-stakes world of tech and finance. "It does," he admitted, his voice thick with nostalgia. "It's strange how a piece of jewelry can evoke such powerful feelings." As they stood there, enveloped in the noise of the city, both Mark and Emily felt the stirrings of something profound, a connection that transcended their vastly different worlds. Mark, the millionaire with a successful empire, and Emily, the struggling street vendor with dreams woven into her handmade creations, were on the precipice of a life-altering moment, unaware of how their paths were about to intertwine in ways neither could predict. Emily Carter stood behind her modest street stall, her fingers deftly arranging the handmade jewelry that sparkled under the afternoon sun. Despite the vibrant colors and intricate designs, her heart felt heavy. The streets of New York City bustled with life, but at that moment, she felt invisible, just another face in the crowd. The familiar pang of anxiety gnawed at her as she glanced at the meager pile of bills tucked in her bag, reminders of overdue rent and looming debts. As she attempted to catch the eye of passing pedestrians, her gaze was drawn to a figure that seemed out of place in the throng of hurried shoppers. Mark Sullivan, dressed in a tailored suit that spoke of affluence and power, walked with purpose, his eyes scanning the storefronts. But as he approached her stall, something peculiar happened. Mark's stride slowed, and his gaze became fixed on a particular necklace, a delicate piece strung with tiny shimmering beads that caught the light just right. Unbeknownst to Emily, this necklace had a deeper significance. It wasn't merely an accessory, it was a fragment of a past that Mark had buried under layers of success and ambition. The design mirrored one that his late mother had worn, a piece he had admired in countless photographs but had never seen in person. He felt a jolt of recognition, as if he'd stumbled upon a long-lost treasure. "Excuse me," Mark said, his voice steady but laced with an unexpected emotion. Emily looked up, startled by the intensity in his gaze. "Yes? Can I help you?" I couldn't help but notice that necklace. It's beautiful. Did you make it yourself?" Her brows furrowed slightly, perplexed by the man's sudden interest. "I did. It's one of my favorite pieces. Each bead has its own story." Mark's heart raced as he stepped closer, captivated not only by the necklace, but by the passion in Emily's voice. "It reminds me of something Something from my childhood. Emily tilted her head, curiosity piqued. What do you mean? My mother used to have a necklace that looked just like this, Mark confessed, his voice barely above a whisper. It was her favorite, and it always brought her joy. Emily's eyes widened with understanding. I didn't know. It's amazing how a piece of jewelry can hold so much meaning. Mark nodded, lost in memories of his mother's laughter and the warmth of her embrace. He could almost hear her voice, urging him to follow his dreams, to always carry a piece of her with him. I never thought I'd see something like this again, he admitted, his voice thick with emotion. Life has a funny way of bringing things back to us, Emily replied softly, sensing the weight of his words. I believe that every piece I create carries a bit of my soul. It's like a connection to the past. I understand that, Mark said, a flicker of vulnerability crossing his features. I've spent so much time building my career, chasing after success, that I sometimes forget where I came from. Success can be a double-edged sword, Emily remarked, her eyes searching his for a deeper understanding. It's easy to lose sight of what truly matters. Mark couldn't help but admire her perspective. Here was a woman who, despite her struggles, had managed to create beauty from her circumstances. It was refreshing, grounding in a way that his high-powered meetings and corporate events never were. As they conversed, Emily shared snippets of her life, her dreams of becoming a renowned jewelry designer, her love for crafting pieces that told stories. Mark listened intently, drawn in by her passion and authenticity. You have a gift, Emily. Your work deserves to be seen and appreciated by a wider audience. Thank you, but it's hard to get noticed in this city, she sighed, a hint of frustration creeping into her voice. Every day feels like a struggle, just to make ends meet. Mark felt a pang of empathy. I know that all too well. I started with nothing, just a few ideas and a whole lot of determination. It hasn't been easy, but there are moments when you meet someone who makes it all worthwhile. Emily looked up, surprised by the sincerity in his words. What do you mean? I mean, this moment. Talking to you, it feels genuine, like a breath of fresh air, he confessed, the walls he usually built around himself lowering, even if just for a moment. Maybe we all need those moments, Emily replied, her tone softening, to remind us that we're not alone in our struggles. Mark contemplated her words, realizing how true they were. In his relentless pursuit of success, he had isolated himself, believing that vulnerability was a weakness. But here, with Emily, he felt something stir inside him, an urge to reconnect with the parts of himself that he had buried under ambition and success. I should probably get going, he said reluctantly, glancing at his watch. But I'd like to buy the necklace. It means more to me than I can express. Emily's heart raced at the prospect. A sale could make a significant difference in her week. Of course, it's yours. As he reached for his wallet, their eyes locked for a moment, and she saw something in his gaze. A flicker of hope, perhaps. I'll make sure that this necklace finds a good home, he said, his voice laced with sincerity. Thank you, Emily said, her cheeks flushing with gratitude. I hope it brings you the same joy it brought me while I was making it. Mark's fingers brushed against her hand as he took the necklace, a connection that felt electric. It already has, he replied, a smile breaking through the weight of their conversation. As he walked away, a mixture of emotions swirled within him. He felt lighter, as if a burden he had been carrying for years had been lifted, if only temporarily. Emily watched him go, feeling a sense of warmth spread through her. It was rare to connect with someone so deeply, even for a fleeting moment. Maybe this city isn't so big after all, she whispered to herself, a newfound determination igniting within her. With the sale in her pocket and a flicker of hope in her heart, Emily returned to her work, her mind racing with possibilities. Perhaps this encounter was the beginning of something more than just a simple exchange of money. Perhaps it was a chance to redefine what success meant to her, one piece of jewelry at a time. And as for Mark, he couldn't shake the feeling that his world was shifting. For the first time in years, he felt a connection that transcended the superficialities of wealth and status. He was reminded of the importance of authenticity, of dreams and the intricate, often painful tapestry of life that bound them all together. As he stepped back into the bustling streets of New York, a thought lingered in his mind. Maybe it was time to redefine his own success and embrace the vulnerability he had long feared. As Mark Sullivan stood at Emily Carter's jewelry stall, the necklace he had just purchased felt like a link to a past that had long been buried beneath layers of ambition and success. The cool metal warmed in his hand as he turned it over, the intricate design catching the light in a way that sent a wave of nostalgia crashing over him. It was as if the necklace pulsed with the memories of his mother, her laughter, and the warmth of her presence that he had sorely missed since her passing. "Thank you," Emily said, her voice breaking through his reverie. "I can't believe you actually bought it. Most people just pass by." Mark looked up to find her watching him with wide, hopeful eyes. There was a spark of determination in her gaze, a flicker of passion that reminded him of his younger self, before the world of business had dulled his dreams. "It was a piece I couldn't ignore," he replied, his voice steady yet soft. "It reminds me of someone I lost a long time ago." "Oh," Emily said, her expression shifting to one of empathy. "I'm sorry. I didn't know." "It's all right," he assured her, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "It's just a necklace, but it carries a lot of weight." Emily nodded, her fingers fidgeting with a bracelet she wore on her wrist. "I understand. I pour so much of myself into my work. Each piece tells a story, you know. This necklace, for instance, is inspired by the memories of my grandmother. She was the one who taught me how to make jewelry." Mark felt a swell of admiration for her passion. Here was a woman who had fought against the odds, crafting beauty where it seemed there was none. "You have a real talent, Emily. I can see it in your work." "Thank you," she said, her cheeks flushing with color. "It means a lot to hear that from someone like you." "Someone like me?" Mark chuckled, but the laughter felt hollow. "What do you mean?" "Well, you're a millionaire. You've built an empire, right? You could easily walk into any jewelry store and buy whatever you wanted." "True," he admitted, "but I'm starting to realize that success isn't just about money. It's about connection and purpose. Sometimes I wonder if I've lost sight of that in my pursuit of profit." Emily tilted her head, studying him. "What do you mean?" "I've spent so much time chasing after the next big deal, the next innovation, that I've forgotten what it feels like to create something meaningful. Standing here with you, talking about your dreams. It feels different, real almost." Her eyes sparkled with interest. "What if we teamed up? I mean, you have the business savvy, and I have the creativity. Together we could create something unique." Mark's heart raced at the thought. A collaboration? The idea was tempting, but his mind raced with the implications. "I don't know, Emily. I'm not sure if that's a good idea. My world is complicated." "Complicated how?" she pressed, her curiosity piqued. "Running a tech company means a lot of pressure, a lot of expectations. My decisions affect more than just me. I don't want to drag you into something that could jeopardize your dreams." Emily waved her hand dismissively. "I get that, but what if we could create something beautiful together? Something that tells a story and resonates with people? I'm tired of just scraping by. I want to build something that lasts, something I can be proud of." Mark could see the fire in her eyes, and a part of him was drawn to it. He remembered the passion that had ignited his own journey. "Let me think about it," he said, and he meant it. "I'll come back tomorrow." "Really?" she asked, her voice rising with excitement. "You'll come back?" "Yes, I promise," he replied, a small smile tugging at his lips as he imagined the possibilities. "Just give me some time to sort through my thoughts." "Okay," she said, her smile widening. "I'll be here." As he walked away from the stall, the weight of the necklace in his pocket felt heavier with each step. The bustling streets of New York City swirled around him, but his mind was elsewhere, tumbling through the potential of a collaboration that could change everything. Back in his luxury apartment, the stark contrast between his lavish surroundings and the life Emily led struck him harder than ever. He settled into his sleek leather chair, the glow of the city skyline illuminating his thoughts. The necklace sat on the table before him, a tangible reminder of the conversation he had just left behind. "Why do I feel like this?" he muttered to himself, running a hand through his hair. "I have everything I could ever want. So why does it feel so empty?" The silence of the room was deafening as he stared at the necklace, the intricate design now seeming like an invitation to rediscover parts of himself he had long neglected. He had built his fortune on innovation and technology, but when had he last felt genuine joy? "Maybe I need to take a leap," he whispered, contemplating the idea of partnering with Emily. But doubts crept in, whispering caution in his ear. What if it didn't work? What if he failed to protect her from the darker aspects of his world? The following day, Mark found himself back at Emily's stall, his heart pounding with anticipation. She was busy arranging her pieces, her fingers deftly working with the materials she loved. The sight of her, immersed in her craft, stirred something within him, an urge to engage, to create. "Hey!" he called out, his voice breaking her concentration. She looked up, and the smile that spread across her face was infectious. "Mark, you came back!" she exclaimed, stepping closer. "Have you thought about what we talked about?" "I have," he said, his tone serious yet hopeful. "I want to explore the idea of collaborating. I think we could create something extraordinary together." "Really? That's amazing!" Emily practically bounced on her feet, her excitement palpable. "What do you have in mind?" "I think we should start with a small collection, something that tells your story and resonates with others. We can blend your artistic vision with my knowledge of the market. It could be something beautiful and meaningful." Emily's eyes sparkled with enthusiasm. "I can already see it. We could incorporate elements from our past, the necklace, your memories, my grandmother's stories. It would be like weaving our lives into each piece." "Yes, exactly," Mark replied, feeling a surge of energy at the prospect. "Let's brainstorm. I want to hear your ideas." As they dove into conversation, the world around them faded away. Mark found himself captivated not just by Emily's talent, but by her spirit. It was refreshing, invigorating, and for the first time in a long while, he felt a sense of purpose beyond the confines of board meetings and profit margins. However, as they discussed designs and inspirations, a nagging feeling lingered in the back of his mind. The shadows of his corporate life loomed large, and he couldn't shake the fear that he might inadvertently drag Emily into a world where success was often defined by ruthless competition and heartless decisions. But as he watched her face light up with each new idea, he realized that perhaps this was what he had been missing all along, a connection, a partnership that could redefine what success really meant. And just maybe, it could lead him to reclaim parts of himself he thought he had lost forever. Mark Sullivan leaned back in his luxurious leather chair, the glow of his computer screen illuminating the sleek modern office around him. Framed awards and photographs of extravagant parties adorned the walls, symbols of his success in the tech industry. Yet, despite the accolades, a gnawing emptiness tugged at him, a void that seemed to widen with each passing day. He couldn't shake the feeling that something important was missing from his life, but he had no idea how to fill it. Across the city, Emily Carter stood behind her modest stall, the vibrant colors of her handmade jewelry contrasting sharply with the concrete and steel of New York. The past few months had been a whirlwind of emotions. The initial thrill of selling her first necklace to Mark had quickly morphed into something bittersweet. When Mark had promised to return, she had envisioned a partnership that would elevate her work and dreams. However, the reality was far different. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, with no sign of him. One chilly afternoon, while Emily arranged her latest creations, her phone buzzed. With a sigh, she glanced at the screen. It was a notification from a fashion magazine featuring none other than Mark Sullivan. Her heart raced as she opened the article, only to be met with a gut-wrenching realization. There, in glossy images, was a new jewelry line, strikingly similar to her designs, being marketed as Sullivan's latest venture. The pieces shone under the spotlight, but Emily felt the light drain from her own spirit. Her creations were there, yet she was nowhere to be found. "Unbelievable," she muttered under her breath, her fingers trembling as she scrolled through the images. The necklace that had stolen Mark's attention was front and center, adorned with the same intricate detailing she had poured her heart into. The betrayal stung deeper than any wound she had known. "He took my designs and he didn't even think to credit me," she whispered, her voice shaky. The bustling street around her faded into the background as a wave of anger surged through her. Emily felt her heart race, not just from the injustice, but from the overwhelming sense of loss. She had trusted Mark, believed in his promise, and now it felt as if he had stripped her of her identity as an artist. Her dreams of becoming a successful jewelry designer felt more distant than ever. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the city, Emily made her decision. She would confront Mark Sullivan. She would demand answers. The following day, Emily stood outside Sullivan Enterprises, her heart pounding as she gazed up at the imposing glass structure. It was a world away from her own, a stark reminder of the chasm between their lives. But today, determination fueled her steps as she walked through the sleek entrance. She approached the receptionist, her voice steady despite her nerves. "I need to speak with Mark Sullivan," she said, a fire igniting within her. "It's urgent." The receptionist eyed her skeptically, but relented, picking up the phone to announce Emily's arrival. A few moments later, Mark's voice came through the line, tinged with surprise. "Send her up!" As the elevator doors slid open on his floor, Emily was hit with a wave of anxiety. The plush surroundings and the scent of expensive cologne felt foreign to her. Yet she squared her shoulders and stepped out, making her way toward Mark's office. He looked up, surprise etched on his face as he saw her. "Emily, what are you doing here?" His smile faded when he noticed the tension in her expression. "Is everything okay?" "Not at all," she replied, her voice cutting through the silence like a knife. "I saw your new jewelry line." Mark's brow furrowed, his expression shifting from surprise to concern. "You did? I didn't know you were following." "Following? Mark, you didn't credit me. Those designs are mine," she interrupted, her voice rising as the hurt spilled out. "You took my work and made it your own." Mark stood, his hands instinctively moving to the edge of his desk, as if seeking stability. "Emily, please, let's talk about this." "There's nothing to talk about," she exclaimed. "You had your chance to do the right thing. I trusted you, and you betrayed me. How could you?" The accusation hung heavy in the air. Mark ran a hand through his hair, frustration and guilt swirling within him. "I didn't mean to hurt you. The line, it was inspired by our conversations. I thought—" "Thought what?" Emily shot back, her eyes blazing. "That you could just take what you wanted and leave me in the dust? That I wouldn't notice?" Mark's expression softened, the weight of her words settling in. "Emily, it wasn't like that. I thought I could help elevate your work. And then, it spiraled. I didn't think it would come off as stealing." "Spiraled? You launched an entire line without even mentioning me," she replied, her voice trembling with anger and hurt. "This isn't just business for me. It's my life, my passion. You don't get to play with that." "I made a mistake," he admitted, his voice low, "but I was trying to create something that could benefit both of us. I thought I could bring you along in a way that would be good for your career." Emily shook her head, disbelief etched on her face. "Good for my career? This isn't about me being showcased on your platform. This is about respect, respect for my work and who I am as an artist." Mark took a step closer, his eyes searching hers. "I never meant to disrespect you. I've been caught up in my own world, chasing success, and I lost sight of what truly matters. I see that now." An uneasy silence settled between them, each grappling with their own emotions. Emily felt the anger wane slightly, but was replaced by a deep disappointment. "You have no idea what it's like to struggle, to pour your soul into something and see it taken away from you." "You're right," he said, his voice almost a whisper. "I've been so focused on business that I lost sight of the human element. I never wanted to be that guy, the one who takes advantage of others." "But you did," she replied, her tone softening slightly despite her lingering hurt. "You need to understand that success isn't just about profits and market shares. It's about integrity, about lifting each other up instead of tearing each other down." Mark exhaled sharply, the weight of her words crashing down on him. "I know I messed up, I really do. I'll fix this. I'll make sure you get the credit you deserve. But I need you to understand something. I've been struggling with my own demons too. My drive for success has isolated me, and I don't want that anymore." Emily studied him, her heart torn between anger and empathy. "You think you can just fix it? You think Band-Aids will heal this wound?" "I'm willing to try," he said, desperation seeping into his voice. "I want to find a way to collaborate, to make this right. I see potential in your work, and I don't want to lose it, or you, over my mistakes." The sincerity in his eyes caught her off guard. She could see the turmoil within him, the same uncertainty that plagued her own journey. But the hurt was still fresh, raw, and unhealed. "I don't know if I can trust you again," she admitted softly, tears stinging her eyes. Mark stepped closer, his voice earnest. "Trust takes time, Emily. I'm willing to earn it back if you'll let me. I want to build something together that honors your artistry, something that we can both be proud of." Silence enveloped them as Emily considered his words, the weight of their conversation pressing down on her. She had fought hard for her dreams, for recognition, and a partnership with Mark could change everything. But could she risk it again? "Let me think about it," she finally replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "Take all the time you need," Mark said, his expression softening. "I'll be waiting." As she turned to leave, a flurry of emotions swirled within her. Hurt, hope, anger, and uncertainty. She stepped into the bustling streets of New York, the noise surrounding her fading into a dull roar. She had confronted the man who had taken so much from her, but whether it was enough to mend the fracture between them remained to be seen. Mark Sullivan paced back and forth in his upscale Manhattan apartment, his mind racing with thoughts of the past few weeks. The confrontation with Emily had left an indelible mark on his conscience. He had spent so long building a facade of success, yet the reality of his actions had chipped away at it, revealing vulnerabilities he had buried deep. After days of reflection, he knew he needed to reach out to her. Apologies were necessary, but more than that, he needed to offer a genuine partnership that recognized her artistry. As he picked up his phone, he hesitated for a moment, staring at Emily's number saved from their last encounter. The weight of his mistakes pressed heavily on his chest. With a deep breath, he pressed call. His heart racing. The phone rang, and he felt his palms sweat as he mentally rehearsed the words he wanted to say. "Hello?" Emily's voice was cautious, yet it carried a hint of curiosity. "Emily, it's Mark," he said, trying to keep his tone steady. "I hope you're well." "Mark?" she replied, a mixture of surprise and guardedness in her voice. "What do you want?" "I've been thinking a lot about our last conversation," he began, his voice earnest. "I realize I made a huge mistake. I should have credited you for your designs, and I'm truly sorry for how I handled everything. I'd like to propose something that honors your work." There was a silence on the other end, and Mark could almost hear her weighing his words. "What do you mean?" "I want us to collaborate officially," he said, his passion igniting. "I believe we can create something beautiful together, a jewelry line that reflects both your artistic vision and my business acumen. You deserve recognition for your talent, and I want to help elevate your brand." Emily let out a small, incredulous laugh. "You think I'd just jump at the chance to work with you after everything that's happened? You took my designs without even acknowledging me." "I know, and I can't express how deeply I regret that," Mark replied, his heart racing. "But I want to make it right. We can create something that resonates with people. Something that tells a story. Your story." There was a pause, and Mark could feel the tension through the phone. "I don't know, Mark. It sounds nice, but I'm not sure I can trust you again." "Trust is earned," he acknowledged, "but I promise to do everything I can to prove myself to you. Let's meet and discuss it. Just give me a chance to show you my commitment to this." Emily sighed, and he could hear the uncertainty in her voice. "Fine, but this is just a meeting. I'm not making any promises." "That's all I ask," Mark replied, relief flooding through him. "How about tomorrow at noon? I'll come to your stall." "Okay," she said, her tone softening slightly. "I'll see you then." As Mark hung up, he felt a mix of hope and anxiety. He knew that this would be their chance to rebuild what had been shattered, but he also understood the fragility of their situation. He needed to approach it delicately, with respect for Emily's artistry and her feelings. The next day, as the sun rose over the city, Mark made his way to Emily's usual spot on the bustling streets. He had dressed in a casual yet professional manner, wanting to appear approachable but also serious about their potential partnership. As he approached her stall, he noticed the vibrant colors of her handmade jewelry, sparkling in the morning light, each piece reflecting her talent and hard work. "Hey," Emily greeted him, her expression cautious but curious. "Hi," he replied, a hopeful smile on his face. "Thanks for meeting with me." She nodded, crossing her arms defensively. "Let's get to it then. What do you have in mind?" Mark took a deep breath, gathering his thoughts. "I've been thinking about how we can integrate your designs into a new collection that tells a story, your story. I want to incorporate some of the elements you've used in your jewelry, and I can help with production, marketing, and distribution. We can reach a wider audience together." Emily raised an eyebrow, skepticism written all over her face. "And what's in it for you, Mark? Are you looking for another trophy to add to your collection of successes?" "No," he said earnestly. "I'm looking for a way to make amends. I want to support your vision and give you the credit you deserve. This isn't just about profit for me. It's about creating something meaningful." Her expression softened slightly, but she still held back. "And how do I know you won't just pull the same stunt again? I can't afford to put my trust in someone who has already betrayed me." "I understand," Mark replied, his voice steady. "I'm willing to put everything in writing. A contract that outlines our responsibilities and ensures you get the recognition you deserve. I want this to be a partnership in every sense of the word." Emily studied him, her eyes narrowing as if searching for hidden motives. "Okay, let's say I'm interested. What's the first step?" "I'd like to start by showcasing your existing pieces in a pop-up event," he suggested. "We can invite some influencers and potential buyers to give your work the exposure it deserves." She hesitated, her mind racing with possibilities and doubts. "It's a big step, Mark. I've worked hard to get here, and I don't want to risk everything on your word." "I promise you, I won't let you down," he insisted. "This is an opportunity for both of us, and I'm committed to making it work. We can be a team, your creativity and my business experience." Emily sighed, glancing around at her stall filled with her creations. The thought of expanding her brand was enticing, but the fear of betrayal lingered. "I'll think about it," she finally said, her tone still cautious. Mark nodded, accepting her response. "That's all I can ask. Take your time. I'm here when you're ready." As they stood there, a moment of understanding passed between them. The tension that had once defined their relationship was beginning to dissolve, replaced by the possibility of collaboration. But Mark could sense that the road ahead would not be easy. They would have to navigate their past grievances, insecurities, and the pressures of a budding partnership. Days turned into weeks as they began to work together, brainstorming ideas and refining Emily's designs. Mark was impressed by her creativity, and Emily found herself inspired by his business insights. They spent hours discussing colors, styles, and marketing strategies, slowly building a comfortable rapport. However, the pressure of their partnership started to strain their relationship. Mark was used to making quick decisions and moving fast in the corporate world, while Emily preferred to take her time to ensure each design was perfect. Tensions flared during their meetings, with Mark becoming frustrated when Emily hesitated to finalize decisions. "Emily, we need to move faster if we want this collection to launch in time for the holiday season," Mark said one afternoon, pacing the small workspace they had set up. "I understand that, Mark, but these pieces are a reflection of who I am," she replied, her voice firm. "I can't rush the process. Each piece needs to tell a story, and sometimes that takes time." "Sometimes?" Mark shot back, his voice rising. "We're running out of time. We need to think about the business side of this too." Emily clenched her jaw, feeling the weight of his words. "I don't want to compromise my vision for the sake of profit, Mark. That's what got us here in the first place." Mark ran a hand through his hair, frustration boiling over. "I'm trying to help you, but if you can't see the bigger picture, this partnership might not work." As the tension hung thick in the air, both of them knew they needed to find common ground. But with each passing day, the strain of their collaboration became harder to ignore, and Mark wondered whether their initial connection could withstand the pressures of ambition and creativity clashing. Only time would tell if they could truly forge a partnership that honored both their dreams. The air in Mark Sullivan's penthouse was thick with tension as he paced back and forth, his mind racing. The launch of the jewelry line was just days away, and while he was excited about the potential success, the weight of a recent anonymous tip hung heavily on him. He had received a cryptic message that morning, hinting at a dark past tied to the designs he was about to unveil. The words echoed in his mind. Emily's designs are inspired by stolen family heirlooms. Mark stopped in front of the large glass window, staring out at the sprawling city below. The bright lights of New York twinkled like stars, but all he felt was darkness creeping in. He had spent weeks poring over every detail of the impending launch, but now he couldn't shake the unease that had settled in his chest. How could he reconcile this revelation with his excitement for the collection? He had come to value Emily's artistry and determination, and the thought of her family's legacy being tainted by his own blood left him feeling conflicted. As Mark continued to mull over the implications of the message, his phone buzzed, jolting him from his thoughts. It was Emily. "Hey, Mark, are we still on for the final fittings? I can't wait to see everything come together." Her voice was light and hopeful, a stark contrast to the heaviness resting on his shoulders. "Yeah, definitely. I'll meet you at the studio in an hour," he replied, forcing a smile that he hoped she could hear through the phone. As he made his way to the studio, the bustling streets of New York seemed to blur into a haze. The vibrant colors and sounds around him felt muted as the weight of the revelation loomed over him. He knew he had to confront the truth, but how could he do that without shattering the fragile bond he and Emily had built? Arriving at the studio, he found Emily arranging her jewelry pieces, each one a testament to her talent and her family's history. She looked up and beamed at him, her enthusiasm infectious. "Mark, look at this!" She held up a necklace adorned with intricate designs, the sunlight catching the gemstones and making them sparkle. "I'm so proud of how this turned out. It's like we've captured a piece of art in wearable form." Mark felt a pang of guilt as he admired the piece. "It's beautiful, Emily. Your vision is really coming to life." "Thank you. I can't believe we're so close to launching. It feels surreal." Her eyes sparkled with excitement, and for a moment, Mark felt a flicker of hope that perhaps this partnership could withstand any storm. But as they prepared for the fittings, he couldn't shake the nagging voice in his head, reminding him of the anonymous tip. Finally, as they adjusted the last pieces, Mark knew he couldn't put it off any longer. "Emily, can we talk about something important?" His tone shifted, and she immediately sensed the gravity in his voice. "Of course. What's on your mind?" She set down the necklace she was working on, her expression shifting to one of concern. "I received a message today about the designs," he began, choosing his words carefully. "It mentioned that some of them might be inspired by stolen heirlooms. Do you know anything about that?" The color drained from Emily's face, and for a moment, she looked like a deer caught in headlights. "Stolen heirlooms? What do you mean?" Hey. Mark took a deep breath, sensing the weight of the conversation. "It said your designs were inspired by your family's jewelry that was taken years ago. I thought you'd want to know, but I also think there's more to it." Emily's hands trembled slightly as she processed his words. That's impossible. My family heirlooms were stolen, yes, but I've never had any proof. I thought it was just a story, something that haunted my childhood." "I know it's difficult to hear, but if there's any truth to this, we need to address it," Mark urged, his heart racing. "It could affect everything we've built together." Emily took a step back, the weight of the revelation pressing heavily on her shoulders. "Mark, my family's history is complicated. I've spent years trying to reclaim a piece of that past through my work. If this is true, if your family is involved in some way..." And suddenly Mark felt the crushing weight of loyalty to his family clash with his emerging feelings for Emily. "I need to find out the truth. I can't let you go through this alone." "Are you sure you want to do this? What if it turns out to be true?" Her voice trembled with uncertainty. "I have to know," he said firmly. "I can't let my father's past dictate the future we're trying to create. I care about you, and I want to support you in this." Emily's gaze softened as she searched his eyes, looking for any trace of insincerity. "Thank you, Mark. I appreciate that. But we need to prepare for the worst. If your father is involved, it could change everything." Mark nodded, feeling the weight of the uncertainty. "I'll talk to him. I'll find out what I can." As the reality of their situation sank in, silence enveloped them. The vibrant colors of the studio began to fade, replaced by an overwhelming sense of dread. Mark's mind raced with thoughts of his father, a man he had always admired but recently begun to question. How could he have been involved in something so sinister? "Mark," Emily finally spoke, breaking the silence, "what if we discover that your family is guilty? What will that mean for us?" He hesitated, the truth painfully clear. "I don't know, but I do know that I want to stand by you, no matter what." Their eyes locked for a moment, a silent understanding passing between them. They were standing at the precipice of an emotional abyss, and only time would reveal whether they would leap into it together or be torn apart by the secrets of the past. As Mark left the studio that day, he felt like he was walking a tightrope, balancing the weight of his family's legacy against his burgeoning relationship with Emily. The city buzzed around him, oblivious to the storm brewing in his heart. He had always been a man driven by ambition and the desire for success, but now he was faced with a choice that would define not just his future, but the future of the woman he had come to care for deeply. Standing at a crossroads, Mark took a deep breath, steeling himself for the confrontation that lay ahead. Would he remain loyal to his family, or would he fight for the woman who had opened his eyes to a world beyond the confines of wealth and success? The answer loomed ahead, and with each step he took, he knew he was edging closer to a revelation that would change everything.